Hi everyone, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about theming your terminal. So I'm going to walk you through how I theme my terminal because I find that for the most part, working in Linux, we spend a lot of our time working in the terminal. So why not make it a little easy on the eyes and configure/theme the terminal so that it kind of makes it a lot more pleasant to work in when we're doing all kinds of different type of work. So the first thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to change my terminal to go from bash to Z shell. So to do that, we're first going to need to install the Z shell package. And to do so, the command is simply just to type sudo pacman-s space ZSH. We're going to type in our password. And we're going to hit enter to install ZSH. Now at this point, the ZSH package has been installed. And all we got to do now is just change our terminal from bash to Z shell. So to do so, what we do is we have to type in the command chsh, enter, type in our password, enter. And now what we're going to do is we're going to type in /bin/ZSH. Notice how right now it's set to bash. That's because we're using bash. But in order to change it to ZHS or Z shell, we have to type in Z shell like this and hit enter. Now everything's been changed. And in order for this to work, we would have to first close the session, log off, and then log back in. And once we log back in, and we open our terminal, we now see that we are in Z shell, as you can see here. Now, before doing any type of the configurations, what I'd like to do next is install the Powerlevel10k theming that you can get for Z shell. So once Z shell has been installed and we launch the terminal for the first time, what we're going to see is we're going to see this message right here. And in order to get rid of this message, when we hit enter, it's going to tell us that in order to prevent this message from reappearing, we have to create the .zshrc file. This is the Z shell configuration file that we're later going to use for configuring the theming in the terminal. So just copy and paste the command that's listed here, and then paste it into your, or I should say copy it, and then paste it into your terminal like this and hit enter. And then once this file gets created, next time we launch our terminal, we're basically no longer going to see that message. Now, this particular step was quite easy to do, but we haven't even really started theming the terminal yet. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to install the Z shell theme known as the Powerlevel10k. And to do so, we're going to open up the browser and we're going to navigate to the Powerlevel10k GitHub repo. And once we get to the GitHub repo, the first thing we need to do is we need to install the fonts, because without the proper fonts, the theming for Z shell is not going to work very well. So the first thing we do is we click on the fonts link. You're going to have to download these 4 fonts right here. Once you download the fonts, you're going to have to install them. So what I ended up doing was I ended up going ahead and downloading them ahead of time. And then once I downloaded them, I created a .fonts folder in my home directory like this. And I copied these 4 fonts into this particular directory. And what this is going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to essentially leverage these 4 fonts in the configuration of my terminal. So if I go back to my terminal and then I go to preferences option for my terminal, I can see here that I already have the option of selecting the Meslo, LGS, and F fonts. And this is going to be required for the Powerlevel10k to function properly. Once the fonts have been, the next step would be to use Powerlevel10k to theme our terminal. So to do so, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go back to the browser, scroll all the way back up again to the installation part, or the installation or the links section, and then click on the installation link. And in the installation link, you're going to see a couple of different ways of installing the Powerlevel10k theme. But in our example, we're going to do the manual way. And it's actually quite simple. So all we really got to do is we got to git clone the repo. So we're going to copy this command. We're going to paste it here. And then what we're going to do is we're basically going to apply the theme configuration into our ZSHRC file, which is the file that we created earlier. So this step is quite important. I'm going to copy that and we're going to apply it as well. I'm going to paste it into a terminal, hit enter. And now what's going to end up happening is if I go back to my So if I go back to the fonts, sorry, not the fonts, but the Z shell RC configuration file, you can actually see this configuration, or this command that will be running every time we launch the power level, or I should say every time we launch the terminal. So if I close my terminal right now and I launch it from again, you're going to see this particular message here. And this is basically how we're going to theme our terminal. So the first part is to make sure that you are seeing these symbols correctly. So it's going to ask you, does this look like a diamond, right? You're going to say yes. The next question is, does this look like a lock? And we're going to say yes. Next question is, does this look like a Debian logo? And we're going to say yes. Now they're going to ask us, do all these icons fit between the crosses? And we're going to say yes. Now at this point, it's going to ask us for the prompt style. So from here, you can pick and choose kind of like what you want your prompt to look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick option number 3. We're going to define the character set. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the option number 1. Next, do you want to display the current time? So on the left, or sorry, on the right hand side here, you can display the time as well in different formats, as you can see here. Typically, I'd like to do it, so I'm going to choose option 2. Next is the prompt separator. So in my case, I like the kind of like this kind of sideways arrow, I guess, if you will, pointing to the right. I like this myself, but there's a lot of folks that, like maybe option number 3. So I'm going to go with option number 1. Next, for the prompt heads, I'm going to go with option number 1. Then for the prompt tails, I like the option number 2, kind of fades out like this. So I'm going to go with option number 2. Next, for the prompt height, I like my prompts to look like this versus looking like this, where you basically have the command below the prompt. So I'm going to put option 1. Next, I'm going to choose the compact option for the prompt spacing. And then I like to actually see the icons as well. It makes the prompt look better, I find. So I'm going to go with option 2. Then I'm going to go with option 1 for the prompt flow, as in concise. And then I'm going to also enable the transient prompt. So I'm going to say yes. And then the option to, and then here they basically recommend that you use the verbose option for the prompt mode. So I'm going to pick 1. And then do I want to apply these changes to the ZSHRC file? I'm going to say yes. And then once I apply these changes, you can see that my prompt completely changed to a completely different looking prompt, where we now have the Tux logo. We can see the different colors, and we see the indicator for our home folder, right? As in like we're in our home directory. Now, at this point, the next steps would be to essentially download some additional packages in order to make, for example, the output of the ls command look a lot better than just the way it is currently looking like this, right? So we're going to colorize it. We're going to have some icons next to it, and we're going to make it look a lot better. So now that the Powerlevel10k theme has been applied, the next step would be to install some additional packages in order to provide some additional theming to the terminal. So the first package that I'd like to install is Neofetch, and Neofetch is basically going to fetch information about your machine. So I'll give you an example. So let's go ahead and install Neofetch. So sudo pacman-s Neofetch, and hit enter. We're going to say enter one more time. And now if I run Neofetch, you're basically going to be able to output a lot of this information about your current machine into your terminal like this. And what we can do is we can add this command into the ZSH RC configuration file, so that every time you launch the terminal, you're going to see this message here. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and edit. So we can do nano ZSHRC file. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll all the way down here. I'm going to say Neofetch like this, and I'm going to add the command Neofetch. Let's save it, exit. And now if I close this and I launch the terminal one more time, now it automatically launches the Neofetch information. In other words, it runs the Neofetch program, which then fetches the information about my machine like this here. Now, once Neofetch is installed, the next package that I like to install is the shell Colorscripts. So this package we can install from the AURs, the AUR helper, known as yay, to essentially install the package. So the command is yay-s space, or capital S I should say, space, shell, dash color, dash scripts, like this. And you're gonna hit enter. We're gonna hit enter one more time. We're gonna provide in our password. And now the Colorscript has been installed. So if I run the Colorscript command like this, Colorscript, I believe it's Colorscripts-R. No, I think it's Colorscript. There we go. So if I run Colorscript-R, R stands for random. So if I run it every time, it's going to always generate a different color script in my terminal. So what we can essentially do is we can do the same thing we did with Neofetch. We can add this, Colorscript-R command into the Neofetch, into the ZSHRC file. We're just going to go all the way down. We're going to type in Colorscript like this. Paste the Colorscript-R command. Hit enter. And now if I actually, let's see. Let's close this. And we launch the Colorscripts. Again, it's going to be below the logo here. So what I want to do essentially is let's clean it up a little bit. So we're going to do now like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove this, the Neofetch command, which is basically how I like to do it on my side. So we're going to say Colorscript. And then we're going to add it in there. So we're going to say Colorscript. We're going to save, exit. And now if I launch my terminal again, it's going to be above my terminal, right? Now, one thing that's going to happen, you're going to see this message as well when you launch your terminal for the first time. In order for it to, or if you want it to kind of disappear, or if you don't want it to show this message, basically all you have to do is just, in your ZSHRC configuration file, just add this line in there. So if I go back to nano.zshrc, we can actually just add this line at the top. And this should essentially prevent that message from reappearing. So if I launch my terminal again, you're going to see now that I have my Colorscript at the top, but I no longer have the warning that was popping up earlier. So now, at this point, the only other two packages that we have to install are the LSD package, which is going to allow us to output essentially information that we see, let's say in the ls command, into basically colorized output with like icons that is very easy to see. So if I do ls right now, for example, you're going to see that currently I have some folders that have basically, these names, I guess, but it's just white, right? You can't really it's very basic and bland. We can actually make that look a lot better by using the LSD command. So for example, let's go ahead and install it. So we do sudo pacman-s LSD, enter. We're going to put in our password. We're going to hit enter. Now we installed it, right? Now watch the difference. If I type in ls again, you're going to see these folders. But if I type in LSD, these folders are now represented in a completely different way. They're blue, and you can also see the folder icon right next to them. So this is actually quite helpful because if I have, for example, a lot more output to look at, such as ls-la, let's say, you can see here that the output compared to the traditional output is much easier in the eyes. So you can kind of see this is a file, this is a folder. I can see the permissions in different colors, right? I can see the timestamp in a different color, right? So this is a lot more visually appealing for sure, but it also helps a lot when you have to go through different files and folders or navigate to different files and folders through a terminal. So by installing this package, we're essentially able to output a lot of these, or I should say, use a lot of the commands that we use every single day, such as ls. But instead of using ls, we can essentially output it using LSD. And then we can create an alias that would allow you to use ls in order to output this theme. The next package that we're going to install is going to be the package called bat. And bat is going to replace the cat command that we use to be able to read certain files, let's say, from a terminal. So, for example, if I type in cat and I type in .zshrc, then I'm able to see the output of my configuration file, right, in the terminal. So I can basically make this a lot more easier to read by leveraging the bat program. So to install the bat program, it's very simple. We just do sudo pacman -s bat, enter, type in your password, hit enter one more time. And now if I do the exact same thing, but I use the bat command, now everything is colorized and it's actually a lot easier to kind of see. At this point, we pretty much completed most of the installation with the exception of two additional packages that I haven't gone over yet. These are the ZSH syntax highlighting and the ZSH auto suggestions. I use both these packages because I find them to be very helpful, especially when it comes down to being a lot more efficient. So the syntax highlighting is basically going to highlight the syntax of the command as you're typing it in order to give you some form of indication whether the command is accurate or not. And then the ZSH auto suggestions is basically a plugin that's going to allow you to, or it's going to basically provide you some suggestions as to the type of command that you want to type. So for example, if you typed in history command already before in the past, and you were to start typing, let's say HIS, then it will basically suggest the command history because it says, hey, you've typed this command in the past. Is this the command that you want to use again? So the goal here is that when you are typing very large commands, it's going to be very helpful in remembering the history, so you don't have to, manually go through the history and find out the command. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the ZSH syntax highlighting. And to do so, we're going to have to go into or open up the browser and navigate to this GitHub page right here. So you can basically type in ZSH syntax highlighting in Google or any other search engine, and you're going to get to this GitHub repo right here. And then all we got to do is basically run these two commands, right? So the first command is going to clone the git repo. So we're going to paste it into the terminal. And then the second command is basically going to add the syntax highlighting configuration into our ZSHRC file so that when we launch our terminal, we're able to take advantage of syntax highlighting. So we're going to hit enter. And now, if you can see when I type in ls, there is nothing there, but let's exit the terminal. Let's go back into the terminal and watch what happens when I type in ls. You see how it starts with the red because L is not a valid command. If I hit enter, you can see that L does not exist. But if I hit S, it's going to turn green because ls is a valid command. So this is what syntax highlighting does. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the ZSH auto suggestions. And to do so, open up a new tab, type in ZSH auto suggestions GitHub. Go to the first link that pops up. And then to install, we're going to click on the install.md link. And basically, it's going to give us a couple of options. I use the manual approach, but if you have like my Z shell, for example, you can do it through that as well. So to install it manually, all we have to do is basically copy this command into the terminal. So basically, we're going to download or we're going to git clone our essentially our repo. So we're going to paste it into the terminal, enter. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to add this source here into the Z shell RC configuration file. So if we copy this and we go back into our Z shell configuration file, we can scroll all the way down and we can add it here. Now, if I save it and I exit, let me exit again. Now, when I launch the terminal again, so let's see, we have history. Now, if I type in history again, as you can see, it is actually filling in the information for me. So in order for me to use this command, all I got to do is just hit the right arrow key and it's going to automatically type in the command for me. Now, this right here is a huge time saver when it comes to having to rerun previous commands, or if you want to make certain adjustments to the commands, this is really, really helpful. At this point, we pretty much configured everything. Let's just take like 2-3 minutes to go over the ZSH configuration file so that you can kind of see what I did here, and maybe you can adopt some of this configuration for your own terminal. So at a high level, basically what I'm doing here is we're configuring the Powerlevel10k theme. This should have already been done when we configured and installed the Powerlevel Z Shell theme. So this you only have to add yourself. This should be added automatically through the configuration. Next, I added the Colorscript option as well here. So basically, what I do is I run the Colorscript command on the terminal startup, so that it gives it a bit of a better, I guess, look in the terminal, if you will. And in my particular case, I'm using the E switch, which allows me to pick a specific script that I want to run. So in this case, it's the Space Invader script. So if I were to launch a new terminal, you kind of see this Space Invaders script running above the Neofetch command. And then below it, I configure the Neofetch because I like seeing kind of like a snapshot of my system for when I launch the terminal. I also configured the typeset -G, the Powerlevel10k instant prompt as off. I also added the alias for the cat command. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm actually running the bat program. I've also added some color coding or some colorization to the man pages. So if you were to open up the man pages, for example, like this, you're going to see that man pages syntax and just the description and so forth is also colorized. Next, I pretty much did the same thing that I did with some alias with just a slightly different configuration. But ultimately, here what we're doing is rather than using the LSD command to output some information like this, right? I'm using the ls command, which does the exact same thing. And then the last two parameters is pretty much syntax highlighting and auto suggestion. And then the last piece is the ZSH auto suggestion. So this is pretty much kind of like at a high level how I have my ZSH file configuration done. I will share this file, or I will share this configuration with you through GitLab. And basically, if there is any questions that you have around this configuration, feel free to post your question in the comment section. Also, feel free to subscribe and like the video if this was something that was helpful and beneficial to you. And that's it. So we're pretty much done. And I'm definitely looking forward to the next video. So have a good day, everyone.